My father drained every cent of my college fund, then looked me in the eye and said I should be grateful he took care of it. My chest burned with betrayal. But worse was the smug grin on his face, like I was the foolish child who couldn't possibly understand money. That $53,000 wasn't just numbers, it was my future, my independence, my ticket out of his shadow. And now it was gone. If you're enjoying this, please subscribe and share, your support keeps the stories coming. I remember the moment vividly. The kitchen smelled of burnt coffee, and he was lounging in his chair like a king, flipping through yesterday's newspaper. I asked him where my college fund was. He barely looked up. Invested, he said, waving his hand as if he had just done me a favor. The word echoed in my ears, cold and dismissive. Invested. As if my dreams of becoming an architect were some gamble he could play at the poker table. My mother, Helen, sat quietly in the corner. Her hands folded tight, eyes locked on the floor. She didn't speak. She never did when he was in this mood. I felt my stomach twist, but I pushed back. Dad, that money was for tuition. You promised me. He chuckled, the kind of laugh that makes your skin crawl. Adele, don't act like you'd know what to do with 50 grand. You'd waste it on books and drawings when you could be doing something worthwhile, like modeling. His eyes scanned me up and down, not with pride but with calculation. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break every plate in that kitchen. But instead, I stood frozen, humiliated in my own home. He didn't just take my savings, he mocked my dream, my worth, my future. For him, my college fund wasn't my lifeline. It was his casino chip. That night, I couldn't sleep. I scrolled through my bank account, refreshing again and again, praying it was some mistake. But the balance glared back, zero. Rage boiled in me, tangled with fear. Without that fund, I had nothing. And yet, a whisper in my gut told me something darker was hiding beneath his word, invested. I started digging. Quietly. Every evening, when he fell asleep in front of the TV, I crept into the office and rifled through his drawers. Old bank statements, casino receipts, betting slips. Each paper cut my hands like blades. My chest tightened with every discovery. He hadn't invested anything, he had gambled it all. Years of my life, gone in smoky rooms under neon lights, traded for dice rolls and whiskey. The worst part? He didn't feel ashamed. At a family dinner weeks later, he bragged. I've been making smart moves with Adele's fund. Setting her up for success. Laughter bounced around the table. My uncles clapped his back. My cheeks burned, tears stinging my eyes as everyone toasted him for being a responsible father. Responsible. The word nearly choked me. I swallowed my fury, but inside I made a vow. If he thought I'd stay silent, humiliated, and beaten, he was wrong. He may have stolen my money, but he hadn't stolen my will. I was going to expose him, for myself, for my mom. For every lie he'd buried under his arrogance. And then one night, as I traced the trail of receipts, I stumbled on something that made my hands tremble, a bank transfer in my name. My father hadn't just gambled the money, he had forged my signature to cover it up. The moment I saw my forged signature, my knees nearly buckled. That wasn't just theft, it was identity fraud. He hadn't just stolen my future. He'd stolen my name to cover his sins. My blood ran cold as the realization sank in. If he got caught, he'd drag me down with him, making me look like the criminal. I hid the papers under my mattress and pretended nothing was wrong, but inside I was unraveling. Every time he smirked at me across the dinner table, every time my mother avoided my eyes, the rage grew. I couldn't carry this alone anymore. So I called my Aunt Alicia. She wasn't like my mother, timid and quiet. Alicia was a lawyer, sharp-tongued, with a spine of steel. When I told her what I'd found, she went silent for a long moment. Then her voice hardened. Adele, you need to keep every document you've got. And don't let him suspect you know the full picture. Her words lit a fire in me. For weeks, I moved like a ghost in that house, quietly collecting evidence, statements, receipts, even voice recordings when he boasted about his investments. I felt like a spy in my own family, my heart racing every time a drawer creaked too loud. But beneath the fear was a strange kind of strength. For the first time, I wasn't just his daughter. I was his opponent. Then came the night he humiliated me in public. It was at a neighborhood gathering, crowded with neighbors and family friends. Someone asked if I was excited about starting architecture school. Before I could answer, he cut in, laughing loud enough for the whole room to hear. Architecture? Please. Adele's just daydreaming. She doesn't have the head for that. I told her to try modeling instead. At least she has the looks. The room erupted in awkward chuckles. I felt their eyes on me, pitying, judging, amused. My face burned as if every spotlight in the world had landed on me. I wanted to vanish into the floor, but I forced myself to stay still, teeth clenched so hard my jaw ached. He smiled like he'd just told the best joke of the night, soaking in the attention while I sat there drowning in humiliation. That was the moment I stopped being afraid. The party laughter still echoing in my head, I slipped outside, called Alicia, and said, "I'm ready. Let's take him down." The weeks that followed were a blur of secret meetings, paperwork, and hushed conversations between me, my mom, and Alicia. My mother finally broke her silence one night, her voice shaking as she confessed, "Adele, this isn't the first time. He's been draining my accounts for years. I couldn't fight him alone." Tears slid down her cheeks, and I realized she wasn't weak, she was exhausted. For decades, she'd carried the weight of his lies while he strutted around like a king. That broke something in me. This wasn't just about my college fund anymore. This was about my mom, about freedom, about breaking the chains he'd wrapped around us for years. By the time the court summons arrived, Gregory still had no idea the storm we were about to unleash. He walked around the house humming, oblivious, while I carried the secret like a blade pressed to my chest. The day we walked into court, he looked confident, almost smug, shaking hands with neighbors who'd come to support him. He thought he'd win. He thought we were too weak to stand against him. But when Alicia placed the forged documents in front of the judge, his smirk faltered. And when my mother quietly slid forward her own stack of bank records, detailing years of hidden withdrawals, his face went pale. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in his eyes, and then the judge turned to me and asked, "Miss Adele, do you confirm these are your funds that were taken?" My throat tightened as the judge's eyes locked on mine. The courtroom was silent, everyone waiting for me to speak. My father glared at me, his stare heavy with threats only I could read. But I wasn't that timid girl anymore. I lifted my chin and said, steady and clear, "Yes, Your Honor. That was my college fund. And my father took it." The words cracked something open. Years of silence, years of swallowing humiliation, shattered in that single moment. My father's face twisted, shock, then rage, then desperation as he realized I'd chosen to expose him instead of protect him. The trial unraveled him piece by piece. Alicia laid out the receipts, the betting slips, the forged transfers. My mother's testimony, soft but unwavering, painted the picture of decades of deception. I could see the neighbors in the gallery shifting uncomfortably, whispering to each other. The man they'd always admired, the responsible father he claimed to be, was nothing but a fraud. He tried everything, blaming me for being ungrateful, accusing my mom of exaggerating, even shouting that the entire courtroom was against him. But the harder he fought, the clearer the truth became. The judge's ruling was final: full repayment of my college fund, with wage garnishment to ensure every cent came back. And my mother, for the first time in her life, was granted her divorce, clean, undeniable freedom. When the gavel struck, I felt a wave crash through me. Relief. Justice. Power. But most of all, a sense of release. He had stolen my money, my dignity, my childhood security, but he would never steal my future. He didn't stop, of course. He tried calling me, sending guilt-drenched messages, even showing up at my graduation months later. He stood there at the edge of the crowd, clapping as if he had earned the right to be proud of me. I walked past him without a glance. My cap and gown were my armor, and in that moment, surrounded by my mom, my aunt, and friends who truly supported me, I knew exactly what family meant. It wasn't blood. It wasn't the man who gambled away my future and called me ungrateful for noticing. Family was my mother, who found the strength to walk away. Family was my aunt, who fought like fire when I couldn't. Family was the people who believed in my dream even when he mocked it. Today, I stand on my own feet. I'm building my career in architecture, the path he swore I'd never make it on. Every blueprint I draft, every building I design, feels like a brick in the wall of the life I built myself, no thanks to him. My mom is thriving, freer than I've ever seen her, and for the first time in years, laughter fills our home instead of silence. He tried to bury me under betrayal, debt, and humiliation. But all he did was plant the seed of my strength. And now? I've grown beyond his reach. The story doesn't end with his downfall, it ends with my rise.